The history of kayaking goes back a long time. It's believed that kayaking began by Aborigines in the Arctic around 5,000 years ago. It's said that the Inuit people are credited with the arrival of the kayak. It's not known as to the exact birthplace of kayaks and kayaking. History of kayaks. Today, we use plastic boats that are made out of Kevlar, glass, and other materials. The original kayaks looked quite similar to these. They were usually made out of a wood frame and had a sealskin deck. They had spray skirts just like kayaks do today that were made out of animal skin. The Inuit were able to roll their kayaks upright if they happened to flip them over. This maneuver was nicknamed the Eskimo roll. The Inuit used the kayak as a hunting tool. It was a perfect way for them to get into remote locations so they could go hunting without being visible. They would sometimes camouflage the kayak with a white cloth so it looked like it was a piece of floating ice. This allowed them to get closer to animals so they could hunt. In the mid-1800s, the kayak found its way to Europe, and kayaking began as a sport. At this time, the kayak was a fabric-covered frame boat. Kayaks were used in cold waters to transport goods and for expeditions to the South and North Poles. These small boats could navigate to the partially frozen rivers and ice floes with ease. The first recorded use of a kayak in whitewater was in 1931. Adolf Anderle took a kayak down Salzachhofen Gorge. After this, the international scale of river difficulty was established. This was used to classify how dangerous the rapids of a river were created. Traditional kayaks. In the middle of the 19th century, people began using kayaks as recreational vehicles and not just a means to hunt or procure supplies undetected. There was a boat that was called the Rob Roy. In 1845, Britain's John MacGregor commissioned the construction of oak-decked and cedar canoes. MacGregor explored lakes and rivers throughout Europe and wrote a book called 1,000 Miles in the Rob Roy Canoe. MacGregor stated that his objective was to introduce people to a new form of traveling. The design for the canoe was based on sketches of kayaks that the Inuit used. Since the original Rob Roy, the popularity of kayaking has increased by a wide margin. Kayaking has become more advanced. In 1873, MacGregor had a canoe club, and they introduced paddling as a competitive sport. In 1924 at the 8th Olympiad in Paris, kayaking was introduced as a demonstration sport. In 1936 at the Olympics, kayaking became a full medal sport. Whitewater slalom kayaking was also added as an Olympic sport so that paddlers could compete on the world stage. Today's kayaks are lightweight and easier to maneuver than kayaks of the past, making it possible for anyone to take up the sport. The design of kayaks hit a milestone in the 1950s. This was when the first fiberglass kayaks were introduced. Since then, builders have been able to make kayaks that are versatile and weigh less. In 1984, the first plastic kayaks were introduced. Kevlar is another material used for making kayak boats, as it's lightweight and strong. Those that kayak today are usually in a Kevlar, plastic, or fiberglass boat. Over time, kayaks have become much more accessible to the general public, making it a fun and safe recreational hobby for people who love spending time on the water. Conclusion. The history of kayaking is long, and there's no telling where kayaking is going to go in the future. Kayaking is popular in many locations worldwide. It's a sport that anyone can take up and enjoy. It can be done with a family or solo.